A fateful decision, the vast expanse of space stretched out before the human delegates, a canvas of endless possibilities. Yet, as they sat in the dimly lit conference room, the weight of their decision hung heavy in the air. This was the moment that would define the course of humanity's future, whether to remain within the stifling confines of the Union or to forge their own path among the stars. Commander Evelyn Sinclair, the steely-eyed leader of the human contingent, cleared her throat and addressed the assembled alien representatives. For too long, we have been shackled by the bureaucracy and self-interest that plagues the Union. Our potential has been stifled, our innovations suppressed, all in the name of maintaining a tenuous peace. She paused, her gaze sweeping across the faces of the stoic aliens seated before her. No more. Humanity has decided that the time has come to chart our own course, to embrace the boundless possibilities that await us beyond the constraints of this so-called Union. A murmur of alarm rippled through the room, and Sinclair raised her hand to silence the protests. Make no mistake, this is not a decision we have made lightly. We have weighed the consequences, the risks, and the potential rewards, and we have chosen to take a stand, to forge our own destiny among the stars. The alien ambassador, a tall, reptilian creature, leaned forward, his scales glimmering in the muted lighting. You understand the gravity of your decision, Evelyn Sinclair. The Union has stood as the bastion of peace and stability in the galaxy for millennia. To turn your back on it would be to invite chaos, conflict, and the potential for utter annihilation. Sinclair's jaw tightened, but her resolve did not waver. Perhaps the Union has brought stability, but at what cost? At the cost of our freedom, our autonomy, our very identity as a species. No, we will no longer be beholden to the whims of others. Humanity will chart its own course, even if it means standing alone against the might of the Union. The alien ambassador's eyes narrowed, and a tense silence settled over the room. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, the decision to leave the Union a gamble with unforeseeable consequences. Yet, as Sinclair and her team of delegates steeled themselves for the fight ahead, a newfound determination burned in their hearts. This was humanity's moment to seize control of its destiny, to embrace the unknown and forge a future of its own making. The path ahead would be fraught with challenges, but the promise of unfettered exploration, scientific advancement, and the realization of their full potential called to them like a siren's song. With a resolute nod, Sinclair rose from her seat, her gaze sweeping across the assembled aliens. Our decision is final. Humanity will withdraw from the Union, effective immediately. The consequences of this action are yours to bear, not ours. We are ready to face whatever the galaxy has in store for us. As the human delegation departed the chamber, the air crackled with a palpable sense of unease. The Union, once thought unassailable, now faced the prospect of a future without the influence of humanity, a gamble that would test the very foundations of the galactic order, the Great Exodus. The news of humanity's withdrawal from the Union sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. In the days and weeks that followed, the human homeworld of Earth and its colonies found themselves at the center of a maelstrom of diplomatic maneuvering and political posturing. Evelyn Sinclair and her team worked tirelessly, negotiating the complex process of severing ties with the Union and establishing a new independent path for humanity. The task was daunting, fraught with legal challenges, logistical hurdles, and the constant threat of retaliation from the Union itself. As the human settlements began the arduous task of untangling themselves from the vast bureaucratic web of the Union, a sense of unease permeated the populace. Questions swirled in the minds of the people. What would this mean for their way of life? How would they fare without the protection and resources of the Union? And most pressing of all, would the Union allow them to leave without resorting to force? In the halls of power, the Union's leadership grappled with the implications of humanity's defection. Some advocated for a diplomatic resolution, recognizing the potential consequences of a prolonged conflict. Others, however, were unwilling to accept the loss of such a valuable member species, viewing it as a blow to the very foundations of the galactic order. Tensions escalated as the Union issued ultimatums, demanding that humanity reconsider its decision and remain within the fold. Sinclair and her team stood firm, rejecting the Union's demands and redoubling their efforts to secure humanity's independence. As the deadline for the Union's ultimatum approached, the human colonies began a massive evacuation, fearing the outbreak of open hostilities. Families packed their belongings, their once vibrant communities now shrouded in an air of uncertainty and apprehension. The exodus was a chaotic, emotionally charged affair, with thousands of ships departing the human worlds, their destinations unknown. Some chose to seek refuge in the territories of sympathetic alien species, while others set out to explore the vast, uncharted regions of space, driven by a sense of pioneering adventure. Amidst the turmoil, Evelyn Sinclair and her team worked tirelessly to secure resources, establish supply lines, and forge alliances with potential allies. They knew that the path ahead would be treacherous, but their determination to forge a new future for humanity burned brighter than ever. As the final human ships departed their homeworlds, the skies above Earth and its colonies stood empty, a silent testament to the momentous decision that had been made. The future of humanity now lay in the hands of those who had chosen to abandon the comforts of the Union, embarking on a journey into the unknown. Forging new alliances, the human exodus from the Union was a chaotic and uncertain time, but it also presented an opportunity to forge new alliances and relationships with alien species that were wary of the Union's growing power and influence. As the human colonies scattered across the galaxy, seeking refuge and resources, they found themselves drawn to the territories of those who shared their desire for independence and self-determination. Chief among these were the Vorlons, an enigmatic and technologically advanced race who had long chafed under the Union's restrictions on their expansionist ambitions. Evelyn Sinclair and her team, recognizing the potential benefits of an alliance with the Vorlons, wasted no time in reaching out to their representatives. The initial negotiations were tense, with both sides wary of the other's intentions, but as they delved deeper into the shared values of personal freedom and the pursuit of knowledge, a tentative partnership began to take shape. The Vorlons, impressed by the humans' resilience and resourcefulness in the face of adversity, offered to provide the fledgling human settlements with advanced technology and resources. In exchange, they sought access to the humans' own innovations and a commitment to collaborate on joint scientific and exploratory ventures. Sinclair knew that this alliance could be a double-edged sword, as the Vorlons were not known for their altruism. However, with the Union's forces bearing down on the human colonies, she had little choice but to accept the Vorlons' offer, hoping that the benefits would outweigh the potential risks. As the human-Vorlon alliance took root, other alien species took notice, drawn to the promise of a new power block that could challenge the Union's dominance. The Minbari, a deeply spiritual race with a rich cultural heritage, reached out to the humans, sensing a kindred spirit in their pursuit of independence. The Minbari's offer of military assistance and diplomatic support was a welcome surprise, and Sinclair knew that aligning with them could provide the human colonies with the firepower and political clout they would need to withstand the Union's inevitable retaliation. Negotiations with the Minbari were complex, as their society was steeped in ancient traditions and a strict code of honor. Sinclair and her team had to navigate these cultural nuances carefully, finding common ground and building trust with their potential allies. As the human-Vorlon Minbari alliance took shape, the Union's response became increasingly ominous. Threats of economic sanctions, blockades, and even the deployment of military force were delivered to the human colonies, each one escalating the tension and heightening the sense of impending conflict. Sinclair and her team knew that they were walking a tightrope, balancing the need for security and resources with the risk of provoking a full-scale war with the mighty Union. But with the promise of a future free from the shackles of the Union's control, they were determined to forge ahead, come what may. The stage was set for a clash of civilizations, a struggle that would determine the fate of not just humanity, but the very balance of power in the galaxy. Part 4. The Calm Before the Storm. As the human colonies solidified their alliance with the Vorlons and the Minbari, a strange sense of calm settled over the rapidly expanding territories. The initial panic and chaos of the Exodus had given way to a renewed sense of purpose, as the disparate human communities banded together to chart a new course for their species. Evelyn Sinclair, now the de facto leader of the independent human worlds, oversaw the construction of vast orbital stations, research facilities, and military outposts. The Vorlon and Minbari technologies, shared freely as part of the alliance, allowed the humans to rapidly advance their own capabilities, bridging the technological gap that had once made them dependent on the Union. In the bustling hubs of the human colonies, a new culture began to emerge, one that celebrated innovation, exploration, and the pursuit of knowledge. The rigid social structures and hierarchies of the Union were gradually replaced by a more fluid, egalitarian society where individuals were encouraged to pursue their passions and contribute to the collective good. This newfound sense of freedom and self-determination did not go unnoticed by the Union, however. As the human colonies continued to grow in strength and influence, the Union's leadership grew increasingly uneasy, recognizing the threat that this independent human civilization posed to their carefully maintained order. Diplomatic overtures demanding the humans return to the fold were met with firm refusal. The Union's attempts to cripple the human economy through trade embargoes and financial sanctions were countered by the Vorlon and Minbari's willingness to provide alternative resources and economic support. Frustrated by the humans' defiance and the growing strength of their newfound allies, the Union began to mobilize its military might, dispatching fleets of warships to the periphery of the human-controlled territories. The threat of an impending invasion hung heavy in the air, a constant reminder of the high-stakes gamble that the humans had undertaken. Yet, despite the looming danger, a sense of cautious optimism pervaded the human colonies. The technological advancements they had achieved, coupled with the tactical expertise and strategic guidance of their Vorlon and Minbari allies, instilled a growing confidence in their ability to withstand the Union's onslaught. Sinclair and her team worked tirelessly to prepare the human worlds for the inevitable confrontation, reinforcing defensive perimeters, stockpiling supplies, and training a new generation of military leaders. They knew that the fate of their species hung in the balance, and they were determined to fight for the freedom they had so boldly claimed. As the human colonies hunkered down, the Union's fleet continued to amass on the borders, a silent warning of the storm that was about to break. The calm before the storm was palpable, a brief respite before the clash of civilizations that would determine the future of the galaxy. The clash of civilizations. The tension in the air was palpable as the Union's massive fleet loomed on the horizon, its hulking vessels a stark contrast against the inky blackness of space. Evelyn Sinclair stood on the bridge of the human flagship, her eyes narrowed as she surveyed the impending threat. "They've made their move," she said, her voice calm and resolute. "Now it's time for us to show them the true strength of humanity." Around her, the bridge crew sprang into action, relaying orders and coordinating the defenses of the human colonies. Sinclair knew that the coming battle would be the defining moment in humanity's bid for independence, a clash that would either cement their place as a formidable force in the galaxy or bring about their utter annihilation. As the Union's fleet drew closer, Sinclair turned to her Vorlon and Minbari counterparts, their faces etched with a mixture of determination and apprehension. "Are your forces ready?" she asked, her gaze sweeping across the assembled alien leaders. The Vorlon representative, a being of pure energy, spoke in a measured tone. "Our ships are prepared, Evelyn Sinclair. We stand ready to defend the sanctity of our alliance and the freedom you have chosen to embrace." The Minbari ambassador, a tall, statuesque individual, nodded solemnly. "The Minbari will fight alongside you, human. Our honor demands that we stand firm against the Union's aggression." Sinclair allowed herself a brief moment of relief, knowing that she and her people were not alone in this pivotal battle. With the combined might of the Vorlon and Minbari fleets, they stood a chance of weathering the Union's assault. As the first volley of weapons fire erupted between the opposing forces, Sinclair gripped the edge of the command console, her knuckles turning white. The human ships, bolstered by the advanced technologies provided by their allies, fought with a ferocity that belied their relative inexperience in interstellar combat. In the chaos of the battle, Sinclair caught glimpses of the Vorlon and Minbari vessels weaving through the Union's formations, their powerful energy beams and particle cannons decimating the enemy ships with precision and finesse. The humans, in turn, utilized their speed and maneuverability to outmaneuver the lumbering Union warships, targeting their weaknesses with well-placed missile salvos and energy bursts. As the fight raged on, Sinclair could feel the tide slowly turning in their favor. The Union's forces, once thought invincible, were beginning to falter under the relentless assault of the human Vorlon-Minbari alliance. But just as victory seemed within their grasp, a new wave of Union reinforcements emerged from hyperspace, their powerful dreadnoughts leading the charge. Sinclair's eyes widened as she realized that the Union had been holding back its most formidable assets, waiting to unleash them at the moment of maximum impact. "All ships, brace for impact," she barked, her voice cutting through the chaos on the bridge. The human and allied vessels braced themselves as the Union's dreadnoughts unleashed a devastating barrage of energy beams and missile barrages. Sinclair gritted her teeth, her heart pounding as she watched the defensive lines begin to crumble under the sheer weight of the Union's firepower. In that moment, she knew that the fate of humanity hung in the balance. The battle had reached a critical juncture, and the outcome would determine whether their bold gambit for independence would succeed or end in utter disaster. As the two civilizations clashed in a cataclysmic display of force, Sinclair steeled herself for the uncertain future that lay ahead. The turning point. The battle raged on, the inky blackness of space illuminated by the brilliant flashes of weapons fire as the human Vorlon-Minbari alliance fought to hold its ground against the onslaught of the Union's reinforcements. Evelyn Sinclair gripped the edge of the command console, her knuckles turning white as she watched the situation unfold with a growing sense of dread. The Union's powerful dreadnoughts had turned the tide of the battle, their devastating firepower threatening to overwhelm the defenders. "All ships, focus your attacks on the enemy dreadnoughts," she ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos on the bridge. "If we can take them out, we might just stand a chance." The human vessels, bolstered by the advanced technologies provided by their Vorlon and Minbari allies, surged forward, their weapons systems blazing. Alongside them, the sleek Vorlon cruisers and the imposing Minbari warships unleashed a withering barrage of energy beams and particle cannons, their targets the massive Union dreadnoughts. The battle reached a fever pitch as the two sides clashed in a desperate struggle for supremacy. Sinclair's heart pounded in her chest as she watched the devastating exchange, her mind racing to anticipate the Union's next move. Suddenly, a blinding flash of light erupted from one of the Union dreadnoughts, its massive frame buckling under the combined assault of the human Vorlon-Minbari forces. Sinclair's eyes widened as she realized that their strategy was working. The enemy's vaunted capital ships were proving vulnerable to their concentrated firepower. "Keep up the pressure," she shouted, her voice filled with a newfound sense of urgency. "We can't let them regroup." The human and allied vessels redoubled their efforts, their weapon systems firing in a relentless barrage that overwhelmed the Union's defenses. One by one, the massive dreadnoughts began to succumb to the onslaught, their hulls crumbling under the sheer force of the assault. As the battle raged on, Sinclair could feel the tide turning in their favor. The Union's forces, once thought invincible, were beginning to falter, their morale and cohesion crumbling in the face of the human Vorlon-Minbari alliance's determination and skill. "We're breaking through their lines," one of the bridge officers reported, his voice tinged with a mixture of disbelief and triumph. "The Union's fleet is in retreat." Sinclair allowed herself a moment of relief, but she knew that the battle was far from over. The Union would not simply accept defeat, they would regroup, and they would come back with even greater force. "Prepare for a counterattack," she said, her voice steady and resolute. "We've won this round, but the war is far from over." As the human and allied vessels regrouped, Sinclair turned her gaze to the retreating Union fleet, her expression hardening with determination. This was just the beginning. The first step in a conflict that would determine the fate of not just humanity, but the entire galaxy. With a renewed sense of purpose, she knew that they had to be ready, for the Union would stop at nothing to reclaim what it had lost. Forging a new path. The aftermath of the decisive battle against the Union's forces left the human colonies and their Volan Minbari allies in a precarious position. While they had managed to repel the initial onslaught, they knew that the Union would not simply accept their defeat and the loss of such a valuable member species. Evelyn Sinclair, her face etched with a mixture of relief and trepidation, convened a meeting of the human, Volan, and Minbari leadership to discuss their next steps. The room was tense, each faction keenly aware of the gravity of the situation and the challenges that lay ahead. "The Union will not stop here," Sinclair began, her gaze sweeping across the assembled leaders. "They will regroup, and they will come back with even greater force. We must be prepared for their next move." The Volan representative, its energy field pulsing with an inner light, responded in a measured tone. "We have bought ourselves some time, but the Union's resources are vast. We must act quickly to solidify our position and prepare our defenses." The Minbari ambassador nodded sullenly. "Our people have faced the Union's aggression before, and we know the cost of such a conflict. We must tread carefully, Evelyn Sinclair, and seek a path that avoids further bloodshed if possible." Sinclair considered their words, her brow furrowed in deep thought. "The Union will not simply let us go. They see our independence as a threat to their power, and they will stop at nothing to bring us back under their control." She paused, her gaze settling on each of the assembled leaders. "Which is why we must take the fight to them. We must strike first, before they have a chance to retaliate." The room erupted into a heated debate, with the Volan and Minbari representatives voicing their concerns over the risks of such an aggressive approach. Sinclair listened intently, weighing the pros and cons of each argument. Finally, she raised her hand, silencing the discussion. "We cannot rely on the Union's mercy. They have shown us time and again that they are willing to use force to maintain their control. If we are to secure our freedom and the future of our people, we must be willing to take bold action." The Volan and Minbari leaders exchanged a glance, their expressions unreadable. After a moment of tense silence, the Minbari ambassador spoke up. "Then we will stand with you, Evelyn Sinclair. The Minbari will lend their strength to this endeavor for the sake of our shared vision of a galaxy free from the Union's oppression." The Volan representative nodded in agreement. "And the Volans will provide the resources and technology necessary to give us the best chance of success. Together we will forge a new path, one that will inspire others to follow in our footsteps." Sinclair allowed herself a small, triumphant smile. "Then it is decided. We will take the fight to the Union, and we will not rest until our independence is secured, no matter the cost." As the meeting adjourned, Sinclair knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges and uncertainty. But with the unwavering support of their Volan and Minbari allies, she was confident that humanity could emerge victorious, paving the way for a new era of freedom and self-determination. The future may have been uncertain, but one thing was clear: the human colonies were no longer willing to be shackled by the constraints of the Union. They would forge their own path, no matter the consequences. The battle for the core worlds. The human Volan Minbari alliance had weathered the initial onslaught of the Union's forces, but Evelyn Sinclair knew that the true test was yet to come. With the Union regrouping and marshalling its full might, the decisive battle for the fate of the galaxy would be fought in the very heart of the Union's domain, the core worlds. As the Alliance's fleets set course for the Union's heavily fortified capital systems, Sinclair felt a deep sense of unease. The sheer scale of the Union's military might was staggering, and she knew that her people, despite their newfound strength and technological advancements, would be facing an uphill battle. Yet, the determination that had driven humanity to this point refused to waver. Sinclair stood on the bridge of the flagship, her gaze fixed on the tactical displays as if a team of strategists mapped out the intricate web of Union defenses. "This won't be easy," she said, her voice tinged with a subtle edge of apprehension. "The Union has had centuries to fortify its core worlds, and they will not relinquish them without a fight." The Vorlon representative, its energy field pulsing with a barely contained power, responded calmly. "We are aware of the risks, Evelyn Sinclair, but the time has come to strike at the heart of the Union's hold on the galaxy. If we succeed, the ripple effects will be felt for generations to come." The Minbari ambassador, her features serene yet resolute, added, "Our people have faced insurmountable odds before, and we have prevailed. With your human ingenuity and our combined might, we will break the Union's grip on the galaxy." Sinclair nodded, drawing strength from the unwavering resolve of her alien allies. "Then let us begin. We've come too far to turn back now." As the fleets approached the Union's core worlds, the skies erupted in a dazzling display of light and fury. The human ships, bolstered by the advanced Vorlon and Minbari technologies, engaged the Union's formidable defenses with a ferocity that belied their relative youth. Sinclair watched the battle unfold with a mixture of trepidation and pride, her heart pounding in her chest as she witnessed her people's determination in the face of such overwhelming odds. The Vorlon and Minbari vessels, with their superior firepower and maneuverability, carved through the Union's ranks, while the human pilots, inspired by their newfound freedom, flew with a skill and bravery that defied their inexperience. Yet, for every Union vessel they destroyed, two more seemed to take its place. The sheer scale of the Union's military machine threatened to overwhelm the Alliance, and Sinclair knew that they were nearing a critical juncture. "We need to break through their defensive lines," she said, her voice terse. "Focus all available firepower on those key strongholds. If we can weaken their grip on the core worlds, we might just have a chance." The human Vorlon and Minbari forces surged forward, their coordinated assault blasting away at the Union's fortified positions. Sinclair watched with bated breath as the tide of the battle gradually shifted, the Alliance's relentless barrage slowly eroding the Union's defenses. Then, in a moment that seemed to stretch on for an eternity, a massive Union dreadnought, its hull scorched and battered, finally succumbed to the onslaught, its powerful energies cascading in a brilliant explosion that sent shockwaves through the very fabric of space. Sinclair's eyes widened, a glimmer of hope igniting in her heart. "We've done it," she breathed, her voice tinged with disbelief. "We've breached their core defenses." As the cheers of the bridge crew echoed around her, Sinclair knew that the battle was far from over. But in that moment, she allowed herself a brief respite, a fleeting sense of triumph in the face of the seemingly insurmountable odds they had overcome. The path to true freedom was still fraught with peril, but with the unwavering support of their Vorlon and Minbari allies, Sinclair knew that humanity had taken a critical step towards forging its own destiny, forever shaping the course of the galaxy.